Welcome to the 902 Podcast, the official podcast of the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office in Lincoln, Nebraska. I'm Captain John Vik, and I want to thank you for tuning in. This podcast will give you an inside look at LSO with topics and guests to discuss public safety issues impacting Lancaster County. Be sure to subscribe for highlights on news, cases, and the people working for you at LSO. You can also follow us across social media by searching for @LSO Nebraska. That's @LSO Nebraska on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Welcome to this episode of the 902 Podcast. We are in studio with Sheriff Terry Wagner.
Good afternoon.
Chief Deputy Ben Houchin.
Good afternoon.
I'm Captain John Vik, and we're here today to talk about LSO's strategic plan, which we just finished and updated for 2023. So, Ben, why don't we give our listeners just a little bit of background before we dig into the meat and potatoes on this, but what is a strategic plan and why do we have one in the first place?
Well, it is a guide and it's a living document of where we are going as an agency and what our priorities are. And we ended up starting this out in 2019 with then Chief Deputy Duncan. And I believe, Sheriff, that was one of our first strategic plans we've had.
Yep, sure was.
So we started that out to be able to kick it out. They had 13 of us on that board, including the sheriff, and then people of all ranks of civilian and deputies. And so that's how it initially got going. But the reason why we ended up doing that is there was a quote I found I think hits it the best. And this is, "A goal without a plan is only a wish." And so this kind of gives direction, and without writing it down and keeping that in the forefront, you can kind of be like that dog that chases the squirrel, and you can really get off track real quick. So that's what the plan is. But again, when I call it a living document, you've got to be, if something, as we know, can change the direction of law enforcement, so you have to be able to emphasize and be able to change your view and move off that. But you still need to have what your main goals are as an agency.
It helps our employees, too, to see what we're striving for down the road, 1, 2, 3, 5 years.
Yeah, it gets everybody who's on the ship rowing the same way, so we can keep going forward.
Absolutely. I remember that analogy, when we did do that original strategic plan. We're a good-sized agency now, have been for some time. A lot of people doing a lot of different things. We've got, multi-million-dollar budget, and you have to be able to provide some sense of direction to all of that, so that we are, like you said, rowing the boat in the same direction. Otherwise, we're going in several different directions, and it becomes a little bit chaotic. So,
well, in our forfeiture assets that we have some funds that we need to be able to make sure we're directing those in a goal for the whole agency, and you're not just, like I said, out there chasing the next pretty thing. There's a lot of cool gadgets out there for law enforcement, but you better have a plan on where you're going and what you want.
Yeah, and why we're going to say yes to some things and why we're going to say no to others.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, you were a big part of the process for this planning with this current strategic plan. So talk to us a little bit about what the process was, who was involved, and how did the planning process go for this document that we're releasing now?
Well, unlike the first one, at least we had a working copy of what we had going on at that point.
True.
And so that made it, I'm going to say, a lot easier on that. The big thing, what I wanted to make sure, again, that we had all ranks of deputies and civilian personnel. So I sent out an email on that, and I had a number of how many I wanted from each rank and to get that, and how many civilians. But the big thing that we changed on this is we asked an outside law enforcement person to come, and that was Assistant Chief Jackson, to be part of it, just to have a different view. Sometimes when you're in your own house, you kind of miss things, and it was good to have that outside house. And then I wanted a private citizen, and that was Sarah Hoyle, who came in and helped that, to give that kind of different perspective of how the public's going to view that. So that's how we changed it this time for our strategic plan process.
So how long did we take to do this? I know it's probably longer than you wanted it to be, but
we started looking into this in October of 2022, and started really working on that, maybe even earlier than that, because I think you were part of it, and then you took off to go to Quantico.
Yeah. So it was probably mid-year 2022.
Yeah. So we started that part, and the big thing I wanted to do is not waste people's time. So we put an hour time limit on it, and had an agenda and goals of where we wanted to go. And the committee, they don't, it's made up of individuals, like I said, have different views on different things, and we kind of hit of our first thing is what did we like about the last one and what didn't we like, and then trying to grow that. And then we had to go over the goals, what have we accomplished and what haven't we accomplished, and are the goals we haven't accomplished what we really still need to do. And we just kind of grew the program from there, and we've revamped some of it, but we wanted to make sure our goals were the main thing that we were looking at as an agency, and there was 5 of them.
You got to make sure that they're realistic and still relevant,
and measurable.
Yeah.
Some of that is, some of the goals we had on the initial one, you didn't know if you made it or not. So on these, we wanted to make sure that, hey, you know what, we can see that LSO is doing those things, and we can talk about it to our people and say, hey, here was our goal, here's how we accomplished it.
Sheriff, I know sometimes people's eyes just kind of glaze over when they hear strategic planning of, why do we need to spend time doing that? But I think we've talked about this before too. It's not that we hadn't been doing a lot of the things that are in this document.
Right.
We've been doing several of these things before.
They just weren't codified.
Right. Mm-hmm. So having seen this process develop, how do you feel now being 4 or 5 years into a strategic planning organization?
Well, our mission statement is written down, and everybody knows what it is. Even though our mission has always been to treat people fairly and with dignity and respect, now it's written down and people can look at it. On the stairway from the lower level of this building to upstairs, those mission
our values
are spelled out on those risers of those stairs, and you get to look at them every day when you come to work. So it's, it really is, it's kind of a personification of that whole process. And it helps us to know where we're headed in the future.
Yeah. So the mission statement that you're referencing there is really it's actually the first page of our strategic plan. But the mission of the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office is to provide exceptional law enforcement services that reduce crime, enhance public safety, and build public trust. So those are really the 3 pillars of what we're trying to do to make Lancaster County a safe place to live, work, and play. And so we're really trying to build our goals and our objectives, make them more than just a wish. We can't just wish that into happening. We actually have to take some steps to put that into practice and try to get our community there through the work of our organization.
And one of the things, John, is, and you all know this, is you go through and you do your job, you can get real caught up in putting out the daily fires and dealing with the daily issues. And I think our jobs, especially as the command level, is to look out 2, 3, 5 years from now and actually, sit down and think, where do we want to be? How do we get there? And do those kind of things. Because if all you do is stick your head in the fire, you can lose track of these things. And this is very important.
Yeah, you forget. I mean, every day it's, like you said, it's whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
Just knocking this issue down or that problem or handling this crime scene wherever and make sure everybody's got what they need. This helps us to take a step back and look to the future.
Well, the values that you mentioned are printed on our steps now, and deputies and civilian staff alike can see those coming into work every morning or night, depending on when they're working, when they come in. But those are: treat everyone with fairness, dignity, and respect, act with integrity and professionalism, know your job and do it well, enjoy what you do, and work hard. And I think, we spent a lot of time on that first go-round of this, but I think, now 4 or 5 years later, everybody's really, at least, we're able to see kind of our mission and our values in those words now. And so hopefully over time that just continues. But the backdrop for that really comes, and this is in our strategic plan as well, but 1829, Sir Robert Peel he's known as the father of modern policing, but he established the London Metropolitan Police Force. And so there were 9 Peelian principles that came out of that. I don't think we need to go through and list all of them, but if people want to Google that or something, they can
Oh,
certainly
come
go
on,
through.
come on to our
Or
public
come
webpage
on,
and see our strategic plan. They're going to be right there for everybody to read.
They are listed there, but the one quote that we took out of this is the test of police efficiency is the absence of crime and disorder, not the visible evidence of police action in dealing with them. So just one kind of small bite-sized piece of some really profound stuff that Sir Robert Peel came up with over 100 years ago that's still very applicable to what we're doing today.
Yeah.
It's amazing he wrote that long ago.
Almost 200 years.
Yeah, almost 200 years, yeah.
And it still fits today on what we do as a profession.
Yep, without a doubt. If people are following us through our strategic plan, we go through the Nebraska Law Enforcement Officer Code of Ethics, and then we move into our community overview. And Sheriff, the community is very similar, but has also changed quite a bit, probably over the time that you've been in office, from a big small town to, well, we're not just a small town anymore.
It has. I mean, we've crested 300,000 population. I think the county total is about 324 right now. And about 10% of those folks live in rural Lancaster County and depend upon us for law enforcement services, and about 90% of that 324 live in the city of Lincoln. So that ratio has really stayed true for my entire career. But be that as it may, we still spend a lot of time in Lincoln with those 300,000 people, with civil process, with coroner's investigations, with fugitive task force, all those kinds of things.
Yeah, absolutely. There's certainly, several divisions and units that make up our office, so people can find an outlay on some of the stuff that we talked about all the way back in episode 0 on the podcast. But just
Correct.
An overview of our agency, you'll find that as you would in most strategic plans from other companies and organizations. But then we kind of get into a little bit of how the sausage was made, Ben.
Yes.
As far as where we came up with some of these goals and objectives, and that's in our SWOT analysis. And SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So Ben, do you want to talk a little bit about the planning process with the committee on how we approach the SWOT analysis?
Well, the big thing is I have my own opinions of what we are like on the first one. Is the strength of the SWOT, and I have my own beliefs. But it was also so good to listen to our other people on the committee to come up on these. But the big thing is our positive culture and our professionalism is the big part of that, and we've been lucky too that financially wise, we are on the cutting edge of technology, and we have, even though it's certainly been challenging on hiring, and we did have a podcast on that, but we do still, as a law enforcement agency, have extremely low turnover, and that is huge. And we have a county board that I would say supports us
Very
greatly.
supportive.
Yeah,
very supportive.
and I don't think every sheriff's office or law enforcement agency could be able to come out and say that, and it makes life so much easier here working with them and having that positive.
Yeah, and I would say for an agency our size, we're definitely punching above our weight, when it comes to opportunities and equipment and technology. That's definitely a huge strength that we're able to leverage when it comes to executing our mission at the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office.
But we have the people that are capable of handling all that too, and that is the great thing, is we have enough people that we can get involved and they can do a great job. We've been bragging about our crash team, our TRU, our technical response unit, all the crime scene techs. I go on and on and on, and thankfully we have people that can get in there and do those and are talented, and that says a lot about the people here at LSO.
But we're not perfect. I mean, we self-identified a number of weaknesses, and a lot of those come down to some of the limitations of that double-edged sword. We're a good-sized agency, but we still have limitations when it comes to personnel and really just the time that we have available to be able to devote to some of these projects. So do you want to talk about some of the weaknesses that we're looking to address internally in this program, Ben?
Well, yeah, we can. One of the things, and we've talked about this on another podcast, is, our wellness needs to improve. Now, I'm not saying it's horrible or anything like that, but that is one area I think that we can continue to step up and make sure our people are taken care of. as they go through their career, because that's going to keep them here, keep them healthy, and keep people out of trouble. So that's one thing we need to keep going on it. Our radio system, as we go, there are certain areas throughout the county that I would like to see that we have reception better, and that's kind of a technology thing of just how our layout of our county is. But I believe as time goes on, we're going to be able to improve that. And so, our social media, I think the time that we were doing this strategic plan, it was lower, but boy, I think we've really taken off on that area. And I don't think I'd probably switch that right now from being a weakness to being a strength. And John, I'm going to have to give you a ton of credit. You came back from the FBI National Academy with this idea on the podcast and running the social media and doing those, that part of getting us out more. And I think the idea of us with our Facebook Live on doing our press conferences and things, I just don't think it's a weakness anymore.
Yeah.
Well, and I certainly can't take all the credit for that. There's a small army of people that contribute to that. So I think that kind of drives, the point home that it does take a lot more attention. And again, that's part of the reason that we have to have this plan, because we've only got so much bandwidth, if you will, to point at some of these issues. And so we really have to be strategic and intentional about where we're going to invest our energy and our time in doing that. But back to the first point that you made, as far as the wellness, with some of the hiring deficits that we've found, I think it's so important that we're taking care of the people that are here.
Yes.
Because we can't take that for granted that they're always going to be here. And, there was a long time that we really, and we still do, we put a lot of energy into finding new people, and we're always going to have to do that. But to be able to take care of the folks that are here and make sure that they're here for the longevity of their career, I think that's just something that's becoming necessary in all industries now.
And just to go back on the social media, this is why you do the strategic plan. You figure out where you're lacking, and then you put your efforts into it and
Improve it.
And that's what we've done. And that's just one of the examples to show how this document helps us on that.
The other things that we have on here are some of the more external things, so opportunities and threats that we have to deal with, and those ebb and flow as things impact our culture and our profession. I think we've touched on this on a few recent episodes, but the law enforcement partnerships that we have are certainly opportunities that we have to leverage some of those strengths, both of our strengths as an agency, but also leaning on the strengths of some partner agencies where they can help us out in some areas. But we've had some external threats that have changed a little bit too, even just over the last few years. We never thought that a public health emergency was going to be something that would impact our operations. We talked about the bird flus and things like that, but certainly COVID's changed the game for a lot of people all the way across the world. So, but then just some of the public unrest and things that we found are just they're things that have always been there, but we're having to take much more intentional steps to be proactive, address those not only in our operations but also just in things like this, because I think we took it for granted that public trust was always going to be there in law enforcement, and how quickly we can lose it.
Well, and the big one there is the negative public perception of local law enforcement due to a national event. I mean, we could certainly be doing everything correct here and have something happen as it did in Minnesota or Memphis and all that, and
I think
we're having to deal with it.
I think as a potential threat, but I think
Yes.
the reality is that the vast majority of local residents appreciate us a great deal.
Oh, without a
a
doubt.
doubt.
Yeah, but like I said, we can't take that for granted. We
Yep.
need to make sure that we earn that respect from them and maintain it.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll actually dig into some of the goals and objectives for the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office over the next 3 years through our strategic plan.
If you want a challenging career, a career where you can make a difference in your life, your family's life, and the lives of those in your community, come and join the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office. To learn more or to apply, visit us online at www.joinlso.com.
We're back with Sheriff Wagner and Chief Deputy Ben Houchin, and we're going to dig into the goals and objectives in LSO's 2023 to 2025 strategic plan. Ben, why don't you start us off with goal number 1?
Well, this is kind of the main one of what everybody thinks about law enforcement is prevent, reduce, and solve crime while enhancing public safety. And so those are the things that, is anybody's looking at a law enforcement agency think of. So first objective, develop and implement effective enforcement strategies on that part of it.
Yeah, and so, we've got some action items about looking at maybe additional canines for some of our canine operations. We're trying to increase some proactive enforcement. And those are things that we talk about on a pretty granular level when it comes to traffic stop productivity and things like that.
Another big thing that's coming in law enforcement that's really taken off is the UAS, the drone programs and how they are being used, with crash scene investigations and crime scenes and tactical uses and just looking for lost children and all those things. That's probably one of the newest things that we've had in the last, 5 years that's kind of jumped up at us.
Right.
Yep. So then the next one on there is establish methods to measure crime trends that affect public safety. And we'll touch on this in a couple other spots in the plan, but that comes into our CJIS project or our Criminal Justice Information Systems project. But we have to have ways to measure what we're doing and,
Correct.
and see if we're being successful. So that's definitely...
That almost flies in the face, though, of Robert Peel's. One of his goals is that, if it's the absence of crime, it's not how many crimes we solve that
Yes.
really is a measure of our effectiveness.
Yes, or our ability to log so many case numbers per year or things
Yeah.
like that. We're really trying to drive down the ultimate end goal.
Yes, we'd like to have less case numbers. We'd like to have less
Yep.
crime, period.
Yep, absolutely. Investigative initiatives and establishing those, and along with establishing effective public safety initiatives. We just talked about one of the public safety initiatives in our last podcast episode when we were visiting about Click It or Ticket.
Correct.
And so we're part of that on a statewide level and a national level when it comes to participating in some of the roadside safety checkpoints and also saturation patrols. But we're also trying to get public awareness out there with the importance of wearing your seatbelt and other things throughout the year.
Yeah, and that's the reason why we had Jackie come on and, give that heartfelt view of how it is when somebody doesn't wear a seatbelt and something tragic happens and how long it goes in life.
So, Sheriff, our next goal, and a timely one, I think there's been some media coverage of this recently, but develop and retain a diverse, high-performing workforce. And the first one there is enhancing our recruiting and selection process. So where do you see this from an agency head standpoint? I mean, I know that you talk to a lot of your colleagues from around the country.
Well, I think, nationwide numbers of applicants in law enforcement is down. Part of it's the economy. Part of it is, folks don't necessarily want to work at nights or weekends and holidays, those kinds of things, and they can get as good a paying job in the private sector as they can in law enforcement. And so it's a challenge to make sure that, people know it's really a calling, that it's a very honorable career and that they can really make a difference in people's lives in law enforcement where they may not be able to make that same difference making widgets in a factory or something. So,
Yep.
I think it's, we're trying a number of different strategies here to increase our number of applicants and to increase those folks who might consider a career in law enforcement. And some of those are showing some effectiveness. And so we'll just keep working on what we can to get those numbers up and to reach out to the various communities in the community in the city and county,
Yeah.
And encourage them to apply with us.
Well, I think the big message that we would give to anybody, at least at this point in the game, is that we are going to have vacancies for the foreseeable future. And we're trying to do everything that we possibly can to make sure that we're providing equal opportunities for anyone to come and work for the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office. But, we really do not care whether you are a man, woman, black, white, anywhere in between. We really need good people to work in law enforcement. We really need good people to take care of their community. And if you are someone or know someone that are interested in a career in law enforcement. We would love to hear from you, love to talk to you, and you can find out more at joinlso.com.
And to coin a cliche, it doesn't matter what color somebody is. It's the content of their character.
Yes.
And that's really what we're looking for, is people of high character.
Yep. So moving on in our high-performing workforce overall goal, we've got a few other objectives. Ben, you already talked about developing and implementing programs that enhance employee health and welfare, so our wellness initiatives.
Yes.
Beyond that, we're moving into trying to enhance our employees' competency and capabilities in their positions. Those are things that we're always striving for on a professional development level, training, and trying to make sure that back to our mission statement that and our values, that people know their job and do it well.
Yeah. And when they come with good ideas on training they would like to attend, we are lucky enough to have the financial ability to pay and have them go there. I'd put our training, our people up to about any agency in the nation.
I just remember back in the day when I was trying to get some advanced training for accident investigation and that kind of thing, and I was going around to some of the state and federal agencies, people that I knew that had money to help fund training, and it was work, but I got it accomplished. We really have the ability here to send our people to very good training to enhance their professional ability, and it's really paid off well.
Yep. Lastly, and just to reiterate, we talked about this one in the previous segment, but managing employee retention. Ben, you and I have joked, we got to coach the kids that show up.
Yes.
And the people that are on our team are the people that really make it happen, and we have to do everything that we can to take care of them. But that's exactly the reason why it ended up on paper within this version of our strategic plan. So moving on to the third goal of the strategic plan is achieving organizational excellence and providing superior service. And Sheriff, I know that this is one on the higher county level, that providing efficient government services is certainly something that's important to Lancaster County, but I know it's important to you as an elected official. When you think about some of the objectives that we have, of the first one being achieving a high level of operational readiness for major incidents. Today's actually the 19th anniversary of the Howlin' tornado.
Mm-hmm.
So, you can never be too prepared for something like
That's
that.
right.
And you always wish when it happens that maybe you'd taken a couple more steps to prep, but that's just the way it goes. But
and every school shooting, every mass shooting I hear about somewhere in the nation, I ask myself, are we prepared to handle that sort of emergency? And can we get there quick enough?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of difference can we make to save lives when that happens? And so, it's a question I ask myself daily on how we can maintain that high level of operational readiness for those major incidents.
And Chief, I know we've worked on getting our command staff through the ICS training,
Yes,
the incident command system, and so we're working through that to make sure that we get that baseline level of training. But a lot of tabletops and other things go into that, preparing for those major incidents. We'll just hit on the highlights of some of these other objectives. Enhancing and maintaining effective internal communication, and that's communicating with our own folks.
You can never talk too much, as you know, on getting the word out to people. You can never communicate enough.
Enhancing organizational safety and effectiveness through some data-driven management. Those are some things, again, that we talked about on making sure that we're making data-driven decisions. And then achieving staffing levels needed to support safe operations and provide that quality of service. And those are all ongoing things related to our recruiting and retention efforts. Goal number 4 is building and maintaining public trust. And I think this podcast is a good example of some of the ways that we're trying to do that. How important is that?
Oh, if you don't have the trust of the public, you're going to do nothing as a law enforcement agency. You're dead in the water. So that's the reason why it's on here. It's so extremely important to do that. And you have to also have it, with your other agencies, the city boards, and, we have 23 other villages and cities in here, and we have to have a good working relationship with them all the time. And that is so important on that. And, one of the things that COVID kind of killed was the Lincoln Police Department and ours Citizens Academy, and that would probably be, that, no, it's not probably, it'd be a great thing to have up and going. And then working with the youth, because I think, if you're starting to try to recruit college kids to become law enforcement agency or officers, you're starting too late on that. And I think getting to the youth and letting them know, hey, this is a great job, and doing those things.
Well, the last one on here is Goal 5, and that's establish and maintain a safe and modern infrastructure. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, one of my biggest goals on that is having a training facility out at our joint range, and it is to increase our training ability. Everybody, there's not enough time in a law enforcement officer's day or week or month to get enough training. It is so scary what we have to do as part of our jobs, and there's so many different areas on that. So that's the reason why I wanted to start that facility out and help doing with our training and looking at that. And as you know, John, we went down to Georgetown, looked at their great facility on that, and that is probably my biggest goal on wanting to be able to get up, so that we're also a resource to the other agencies, and that our people are the best trained and have the best opportunities to succeed, and the public will have get the most out of that with that training.
They'll reap the benefits of all that.
Yeah. Well, Sheriff, final thoughts on the strategic plan.
Just take a look at it. Let folks know, both internally and externally, on where we're going and how we're going to get there. And if you have any comments, shoot us an email. Let us know.
Absolutely. LSO at lancaster.ne.gov is where you can find us on email. You can also go and find a copy of our strategic plan by going to our website, and that's www.lancaster.ne.gov/sheriff. Appreciate you listening to today's episode, but we'd love to hear more feedback about the strategic plan if anybody has it. Thanks for listening.